20 forgotten restaurants from the 1970s. We want back. Remember when a birthday meant discounts? Burgers came in brown bags and salad bars stole the spotlight? The 1970s were packed with unforgettable restaurants, now gone but not forgotten. From castles of burgers to hat-shaped diners, we're revisiting 20 vanished eateries that fed our stomachs and our souls. Ready for a tasty trip down memory lane? Sizzler. There was a time when the name Sizzler meant one thing: a great steak at a price you could afford. Founded in 1958 by Del and Helen Johnson in Culver City, California, Sizzler started as a humble, family-friendly steakhouse that quickly earned a loyal following. It was the kind of place where the scent of grilled meat filled the air, and families sat down for hearty meals without breaking the bank. By the mid-1960s, Sizzler had exploded in popularity, with over 100 bustling locations across California. Steaks, seafood, and that homey diner feel made it a go-to spot for everything from birthday dinners to post-game celebrations. But then came the 80s, and with it, the salad bar. What started as a simple add-on slowly took over. The salad bar expanded into a sprawling buffet packed with pasta salads, fruit, hot sides, and just about everything under the sun. And somewhere along the way, Sizzler lost its focus. The steaks that built the brand took a back seat, and customers started noticing a drop in quality. The shift proved costly. By 1996, overwhelmed by competition and struggling to stay afloat, Sizzler filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, closing more than 130 locations. Still, for many, Sizzler remains a memory of a time when dinner out meant sizzling steaks, smiling servers, and maybe one too many trips to the salad bar. Burger Chef. If you grew up in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, chances are Burger Chef was part of your childhood. This wasn't just another burger joint. It was a fast food pioneer that helped shape how Americans eat today. It all started in 1954 in Indianapolis, Indiana, when brothers Frank and Donald Thomas had a bold idea: combine speed, flavor, and affordability in a way no one had done before. That idea became Burger Chef. Long before combo meals were the norm, Burger Chef introduced the triple threat: a burger, fries, and a drink, bundled together for just 45 cents. It was a game changer, and they didn't stop there. With signature items like the Big Chef and Super Chef, they offered big flavor that families could count on. By 1973, Burger Chef had exploded into one of the largest fast food chains in the country, with over 1,000 locations dotting the map. But the golden days didn't last. Ownership changed hands in the 1980s, first to General Foods and then to Imasco, the parent company of Hardee's. Slowly but surely, Burger Chef restaurants were rebranded or shuttered as they struggled to keep up with fast-growing competitors like McDonald's and Burger King. By 1996, the last Burger Chef had quietly closed. Steak and Ale. If you were around in the 70s or 80s, chances are you remember Steak and Ale, one of the original trailblazers of the casual dining movement. This wasn't just another steakhouse, it was the brainchild of Norman E. Brinker, who launched it in 1966 in Dallas, Texas. His goal? To offer high-quality steakhouse dining in a relaxed, affordable setting. And boy, did it catch on. Picture this: dark wood paneling, rustic beams overhead, flickering candlelight on every table, and the unmistakable scent of sizzling steaks and roasted prime rib wafting through the air. It felt like stepping into an English pub, with all the charm and none of the stuffiness. And let's not forget their legendary Kensington Club steak, or the game-changing, all-you-can-eat salad bar, something totally new at the time. By the mid-1980s, Steak and Ale had nearly 280 locations, but as the 90s rolled in, changing tastes and fierce competition slowly chipped away at its success. Despite efforts to modernize and cut prices, the brand couldn't keep up. It closed its last location in 2008. But in 2024, something special happened. Steak and Ale made a comeback. With new locations opening in Texas and the Midwest, the brand is blending its beloved classics with a modern twist. bringing back not just the food, but the warm, nostalgic feeling we all miss. Sambos. There was a time when grabbing a stack of pancakes at Sambo's was part of the American weekend ritual. Founded in 1957 in sunny Santa Barbara by Sam Battistone Sr. and Newell Bennett, the restaurant's name was a simple blend of their own, Sam and Bo. But unintentionally, it also referenced a children's storybook, the story of Little Black Sambo, and that connection would later spark a cultural firestorm. At first, the vibe was warm and welcoming. Sambo's served up classic American comfort food, fluffy pancakes, hearty burgers, and bottomless cups of coffee in cheerful dining rooms filled with colorful murals inspired by the storybook. Families loved it. By 1979, Sambo's had exploded across the country with over 1,100 locations, becoming a coast-to-coast diner sensation. But the charm didn't last. As the civil rights movement evolved and awareness grew, the restaurant's name and imagery drew mounting criticism for racial insensitivity. What had once seemed playful began to offend, and communities pushed back. Protests, lawsuits, and financial strain quickly followed, leading to the company's bankruptcy by 1981. Though most locations vanished or rebranded, the original Sambo's in Santa Barbara held on until 2020. In the wake of the George Floyd protests, even that final diner was renamed, bringing a definitive close to the complicated, nostalgic, and controversial legacy of Sambo's. White Tower. If you grew up in the mid-20th century, you might remember the comforting glow of a White Tower restaurant gleaming on the corner. Born in 1926 in Milwaukee thanks to brothers John E. and Thomas E. Sachs, White Tower wasn't just another burger joint. It was a symbol of modern, affordable dining. With their signature white fortress-style buildings and shiny stainless steel counters, White Tower promised more than just food. It offered families a clean, reliable place to gather. For many, it was a Saturday tradition. You'd slide into a booth with your dad, the smell of sizzling meat in the air, and wait for those perfectly square mini burgers, served piping hot with soft buns and gooey cheese that melted just right. It wasn't fancy, but it was delicious and dependable. At its peak in the 1950s, White Tower had over 230 locations, serving up simple joy to communities across the country. But the ride wasn't without bumps. In 1929, White Castle took issue with the striking similarities and hit White Tower with a lawsuit. That legal battle led to design changes and royalty payments that lingered for years. Eventually, the chain couldn't keep up with the fast-evolving food scene. One by one, the restaurants disappeared. The final White Tower, located in Toledo, Ohio, stood tall until a tragic fire in April 2022 brought down the curtain on a true American classic. What's the one unforgettable menu item from the past you wish you could taste again today? Beefsteak Charlie's. There was a time when going out to eat felt like a celebration every single time. And no place captured that spirit better than Beefsteak Charlie's. It all began way back in 1910 in Manhattan, where Charles W. Chisel opened a cozy pub-style steakhouse that quickly became a local favorite. For decades, it served up hearty steaks, fresh seafood piled high, and that iconic unlimited salad bar. But what really got people talking? The bottomless drinks, beer, wine, and sangria flowed freely, making dinners feel more like festive gatherings than simple meals. Fast forward to 1976, and businessman Larry Ellman gave Beefsteak Charlie's a bold second act. He took that old-school charm and turned it into a full-blown East Coast phenomenon, with over 60 locations stretching across the region. It became the kind of place where families celebrated birthdays, co-workers gathered after hours, and friends lingered over second and third rounds. But what made it so fun also led to its downfall. The all-you-can-drink deal, once its biggest selling point, became unsustainable as dining trends shifted and the industry tightened up. Even a last-ditch effort by Bombay Palace in 1987 couldn't save it. Slowly but surely, the lights went out. By 2009, the final Beefsteak Charlie's had closed, but for many, the memory of carefree nights and overflowing plates still lives on. Henry's Hamburgers. There was a time when you could grab a juicy cheeseburger for just 15 cents, and no place did it better than Henry's Hamburgers. Born in 1954 in Chicago, Henry's was the brainchild of the folks behind Bressler's Ice Cream. Their goal? Take the booming burger trend and make it fast, flavorful, and incredibly affordable. And it worked. Almost overnight, Henry's became a go-to stop for families, teenagers, and anyone with a craving for quick comfort food. The star of the show was the beloved Brown Bag Special, a hearty double cheeseburger, a pile of golden fries, and an icy cold drink, all packed neatly in a simple brown paper bag. It was no frills, delicious, and exactly what folks wanted. Slogans like, "Aren't you hungry for a Henry's?" stuck in your head as much as the taste did in your memory. And with over 200 locations across the country by the early 1960s, Henry's was everywhere. But the fast food world changed fast. As giants like McDonald's began dominating the market, Henry's struggled to keep up. Behind the scenes, Bressler's corporate changes and shifting priorities only made things worse. One by one, locations disappeared. Today, only one Henry's remains, in Benton Harbor, Michigan, a nostalgic holdout that keeps the spirit alive with updated offerings and a healthy dose of retro charm. Howard Johnson's. If you ever took a family road trip in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, there's a good chance you stopped at a Howard Johnson's. You couldn't miss it. Those bright orange roofs stood out like beacons along the highway, welcoming travelers with the promise of good food, friendly service, and a little bit of comfort away from home. What started in 1925 as a modest soda fountain and ice cream stand in Quincy, Massachusetts, soon grew into one of the most beloved chains in America. Known lovingly as Hojo's, the restaurant was a staple of the open road. Whether it was crispy fried clams, hot dogs, or classic meatloaf, the food always felt like a warm hug. But the real magic? The ice cream. With 28 flavors to choose from, Howard Johnson's didn't just sell dessert, it sold memories. Some folks swore he invented ice cream, he didn't, but he sure made it feel that way. By the 1960s and 70s, there were more than 1,000 Howard Johnson's locations nationwide. But as fast food took over, quicker and cheaper options began to pull people away. Slowly, locations closed one by one. Then, in 2022, the last Hojo's in Lake George, New York, shut its doors for good, marking the bittersweet end of an American tradition we'll never quite replace. Shakey's Pizza. Before pizza became something we ordered by app and ate in silence at home, there was Shakey's, a place where every slice was served with a smile, a song, and the sound of laughter. It all began back in 1954, when Sherwood Shakey Johnson and his buddy Ed Plummer opened the very first Shakey's Pizza Parlor in Sacramento, California. And this wasn't just another pizza joint, it was an experience. Step inside and you'd be greeted by the upbeat notes of Dixieland jazz, the aroma of sizzling pepperoni and crispy fried chicken, and the happy hum of families and teenagers gathered around wooden tables. Kids celebrated birthdays. Teens shared laughs over pitchers of root beer, or real beer, and there was always something going on. Shakey's was more than a restaurant. It was where memories were made. By the 1970s, the magic had spread. Almost 350 Shakey's locations dotted the map across America. But as home delivery rose and eating out became less about atmosphere and more about speed, Shakey's began to fade from the spotlight. Even a 1984 effort by two hopeful franchisees couldn't reverse the decline. And under Enop Pacific Holdings, most of the once bustling parlors quietly disappeared. Bob's Big Boy. If you grew up on the West Coast, chances are you remember the grinning statue of a chubby-cheeked boy in red checkered overalls welcoming you to Bob's Big Boy. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was a slice of Americana, a place where memories were made over burgers, fries, and thick, creamy milkshakes. It all began in 1936, when Bob Wyan opened a humble little place called Bob's Pantry in Glendale, California. Just months later, he changed the game. Wyan crafted the now legendary Big Boy Burger, a double-decker wonder that set the standard for what a great burger could be. That one creation became the heart and soul of his growing empire. Soon, Bob's Big Boy was the go-to spot for families and road trippers alike. With shiny chrome counters, cozy booths, and checkered tile floors, it was a warm, friendly place that felt like home. By 1989, the chain had grown to over 240 locations nationwide. But after Bob sold the brand to Marriott in 1967, things began to shift. A series of ownership changes, mismanagement, and increasing pressure from fast food giants caused the once thriving chain to stumble. Most locations eventually closed, leaving just a few scattered survivors. Today, the iconic Burbank restaurant still stands tall, officially recognized as a historic landmark, and unofficially remembered as the place where generations shared birthdays, breakfasts, and big smiles. Which of these forgotten restaurants do you miss the most, and what dish takes you right back? Red Barn. Imagine pulling into a fast food joint shaped like an actual red barn. It sounds like something out of a Norman Rockwell painting. But for many families in the 60s and 70s, that big red building meant one thing: delicious burgers and good times. Red Barn was the brainchild of Don Six, Martin Levine, and Jim Kirst, who opened the first one in Springfield, Ohio, back in 1961. What started as a novelty quickly became a national favorite. Long before the Big Mac made headlines, Red Barn was serving up the Big Barney, a double patty burger with all the fixings that had folks lining up. Add in the Barn Buster and one of the very first self-service salad bars in fast food history, and Red Barn was clearly ahead of its time. At its peak, the chain boasted around 400 locations stretching across the US, Canada, and even Australia. Red Barn was more than just a place to eat. It was where memories were made. Like the time Uncle Joe mistook coleslaw for shredded lettuce and ended up creating his own signature sandwich. He never looked back. But in 1978, City Investing Company took over and, sadly, their focus was more on real estate than roast beef. Support dwindled, and one by one, the barn doors closed. The last Red Barn shut down in 1988, but the charm, the burgers, and even those accidental coleslaw moments still live on in the hearts of those who remember dining in a barn with a burger in hand. Gino's Hamburgers. Say the words Gino Giant to anyone from the Mid-Atlantic, and watch their eyes light up with nostalgia. Gino's Hamburgers wasn't just a place to eat. It was a Friday night ritual, a post-game hangout, and a delicious slice of local pride. It all began in 1957 in Dundalk, Maryland, when two Baltimore Colts legends, Gino Marchetti and Alan Amecha, joined forces with Joe Campanella and Louis Fisher to create something special: a burger joint with real flavor and big heart. The crown jewel of the menu was the Gino Giant, a towering burger stacked high with all the fixings. People lined up for sirloin sandwiches and fries, but Gino's had another ace up its sleeve: Kentucky Fried Chicken. Thanks to a savvy partnership, you could order Colonel Sanders' famous fried chicken right alongside your burger, making Gino's a one-stop shop for family cravings. At its peak, there were over 300 Gino's locations across the Mid-Atlantic. But as the fast food giants like McDonald's and Burger King gained steam in the 70s and 80s, Gino's began to struggle. Eventually, Marriott stepped in and rebranded most locations into Roy Rogers by 1982. Wags. Believe it or not, there was a time when your local Walgreens wasn't just filling prescriptions, it was flipping pancakes too. In 1975, the pharmacy giant stepped into the diner game with Wags, a cozy, family-friendly restaurant that offered comfort food 24/7. Inspired by the likes of Denny's and Big Boy, Wags became an unexpected hit, especially with night owls, breakfast lovers, and anyone craving a hot, affordable meal at any hour. Picture this: neon signs glowing against the night sky, warm booths waiting inside, and the smell of sizzling bacon and buttery pancakes in the air, even at 2 a.m. From Chicago to Florida, Wags quickly became the go-to spot for late-night study sessions, weekend breakfasts, and everything in between. The menu was classic diner fare: juicy burgers, all-day breakfasts, endless coffee refills, and that unmistakable feeling of comfort. By the late 1980s, Wags had 91 locations, and things seemed to be going well, until Walgreens decided to exit the restaurant business. In 1988, they sold the chain to Marriott, and that's when the trouble started. Marriott struggled to manage the brand, leading to a decline in quality, customer confusion, and ultimately lost loyalty. By 1991, Wags was gone. Many locations became Shoney's or simply vanished. Still, for those who remember, Wags lives on in the laughter, the pancakes, and the surprise that a pharmacy chain once served up some of the coziest comfort food around. Minnie Pearl's Chicken. There was a time when fried chicken was booming and everyone wanted a piece of the pie, or the drumstick. That's where Minnie Pearl's Chicken came in. Launched in 1966 by two ambitious Nashville attorneys, the chain was named after the beloved country comedian Minnie Pearl, known for her big smile, southern charm, and signature straw hat. The idea? Blend down home hospitality with crispy fried chicken and go toe-to-toe with none other than Colonel Sanders. With Minnie's cheerful face on the logo and her wholesome reputation front and center, the chain quickly took off. In just a few years, more than 100 franchises popped up around the country. Folks were curious and hopeful, lining up for what was promised to be good old-fashioned Southern cooking. But things didn't go quite as planned. While some customers got a perfectly fried meal, others got, well, not much at all. Inconsistency plagued the brand. One day the chicken was golden and juicy. The next it might arrive undercooked or barely seasoned. Behind the scenes, things got worse. The business was hit with serious allegations of financial mismanagement and inflated revenue reporting, scandals that rocked investor confidence. By 1973, the dream was done. Most Minnie Pearl's Chicken locations quietly shuttered, leaving behind more questions than success stories. Bill Knapp's. If you were lucky enough to grow up near a Bill Knapp's, you know that birthdays there weren't just special. They were deliciously unforgettable. Founded in 1948 by Clinton B. Knapp in Battle Creek, Michigan, Bill Knapp's was all about comfort food and kindness. With its home-style meals and cozy atmosphere, it felt less like a chain and more like Grandma's kitchen, where the fried chicken was crispy, the bean soup hearty, and the chocolate cake, well, let's just say it was legendary. Families flocked in from surrounding towns, drawn by not only the food, but the warmth and charm. And on your birthday or anniversary, you got a discount equal to your age. If you were turning 75, you ate for 75% off. What's not to love? That simple gesture made it a go-to spot for celebrating life's milestones. At its peak, Bill Knapp's had more than 60 restaurants across the Midwest and Florida. But by the late 1990s, the tides were shifting. Younger diners preferred trendier spots, and a failed attempt to modernize the menu in 1998 alienated longtime fans. Then came a listeria outbreak that dealt a heavy blow to its reputation. By 2002, overwhelmed by financial losses, Bill Knapp's filed for Chapter 11 and closed its doors for good. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment 1 to let us know you're still following. Royal Castle. Once upon a time in sunny Miami, Florida, there stood a castle, not with towers or dragons, but with sizzling mini burgers, frosty birch beer, and a whole lot of southern charm. That castle was Royal Castle, founded in 1938 by William Singer. Modeled after the northern powerhouse White Castle, Royal Castle became the South's own fast food gem, winning over customers with its bite-sized burgers, steaming hot and topped with minced onions and pickles that packed a flavorful punch. But it wasn't just burgers that made this place special. Royal Castle also served freshly squeezed orange juice by the glass, and hearty breakfast that had regulars rolling in before sunrise. Whether you were grabbing a quick snack or recovering from a night out, there was something about those shiny countertops, sizzling grills, and glowing neon signs that felt like home. By the 1960s, the chain had grown to over 175 locations across Florida, Georgia, Ohio, and Louisiana. But as fast food giants like McDonald's and Burger King took over in the 1970s, Royal Castle struggled to compete. Things worsened after a 1969 acquisition by Performance Systems, whose financial missteps and quality slip-ups pushed the beloved chain into decline. By 1975, most Royal Castle restaurants had quietly vanished. Still, the memories linger. For those who remember midnight burger runs and ice-cold birch beer, Royal Castle isn't just another lost chain. It's a flavorful piece of Southern fast food history where the taste of simpler times still reigns supreme. The Brown Derby. Once upon a time in Hollywood, dining out wasn't just about food. It was an event. And no place captured that magic quite like the Brown Derby. Opening its doors in 1926, this iconic restaurant was dreamed up by Wilson Misner, Herbert K. Somborn, and none other than Jack Warner, co-founder of Warner Brothers. But it wasn't just the star-studded ownership that got people talking, it was the building itself. The original location on Wilshire Boulevard was literally shaped like a giant brown derby hat, instantly becoming a Los Angeles landmark. Inside, the atmosphere sparkled with old Hollywood charm. The walls were lined with caricatures of Tinseltown royalty, from Clark Gable to Judy Garland. And while the decor turned heads, the food won hearts, especially the famous Cobb salad. Created by co-owner Robert H. Cobb, it was chopped and tossed tableside, turning a simple salad into a performance worthy of applause. At its peak, the Brown Derby was the place to see and be seen. But by the 1970s, the golden age of Hollywood had dimmed, and America was turning toward casual, faster dining. The Derby's upscale style began to feel out of step. Rising costs, changing trends, and fewer celebrity sightings led to the slow decline. By 1980, the original hat-shaped restaurant closed, and the others soon followed. Pup N Taco. Imagine pulling into a drive-in where you could order a hot dog, a taco, and a pastrami sandwich, all in the same meal. Sounds odd, right? But for Californians in the mid-20th century, that strange and wonderful combo was just another day at Pup N Taco. Launched in 1956 by Russell Wendell in sunny Pasadena, this quirky chain broke all the fast food rules, and people loved it for exactly that reason. What started as a simple drive-in quickly became a local sensation. Pup N Taco's menu was pure California cool. Crispy tacos, juicy hot dogs, burgers, and flavorful pastrami sandwiches, all served alongside icy slushes and a cold cup of RC Cola. Families packed into parking spots, windows down, neon lights glowing overhead, as kids giggled over mismatched combos that somehow tasted just right. By the 1970s, the chain had grown to over 100 locations across Southern California, with a few fan-favorite outposts in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But as the 1980s rolled in, real estate prices soared, and big-name competitors like McDonald's and Taco Bell closed in fast. In 1984, Taco Bell snapped up 99 of Pup N Taco's prime locations, quietly phasing out the brand. The final location in Albuquerque held on until 2013, but eventually even that piece of history faded. Lums. If you've ever bitten into a hot dog steamed in beer, chances are you remember Lums, the offbeat, lovable restaurant chain that turned a simple idea into a national obsession. It all began in 1956 in Miami Beach, where brothers Stewart and Clifford Perlman transformed a tiny hot dog stand into something unforgettable. With their beer-steamed dogs, Lums offered a one-of-a-kind flavor that quickly won over curious customers and grew into a full-blown sensation. By the early 1970s, Lums had become a household name, boasting more than 400 locations across the US, Puerto Rico, and even parts of Europe. The restaurants were bright, cheerful, and full of character, just like their signature menu. The Perlmans were riding high, even buying Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas in 1969. When they sold Lums in 1971 to entrepreneur John Y. Brown, the same man who brought Kentucky Fried Chicken into the spotlight, big changes followed. Brown introduced the Ollie Burger, based on a spicy secret recipe from Miami legend Ollie Gleichenhaus. But not all change is good. When a Swiss company, Wienerwald, took over in 1978, things started to unravel. Mismanagement and financial troubles led to bankruptcy by 1982, and the once mighty chain slowly vanished. The last Lums closed quietly in Bellevue, Nebraska in 2017. Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor. If you ever had a birthday party at Farrell's, chances are you still remember it like it was yesterday. Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor wasn't just a place to grab dessert. It was a full-blown celebration wrapped in whipped cream, topped with a cherry, and delivered with sirens blaring and drums pounding. Founded in 1963 by Bob Farrell and Ken McCarthy in Portland, Oregon, it quickly became a national sensation by turning a simple treat into an unforgettable event. Walking into Farrell's felt like stepping back in time. The restaurant was styled like a carnival straight out of the 1890s. Brass fixtures, checkered floors, antique decor, and the jolly sound of a player piano filled the air. The staff, dressed in colorful turn-of-the-century outfits, didn't just serve ice cream, they put on a show. The highlight? The zoo. A massive sundae big enough to serve a table, paraded through the dining room to cheers, whistles, and sometimes even sparklers. By 1975, Farrell's had expanded to over 120 locations. But after Marriott took over in 1972, the excitement began to fade. Changing times, evolving tastes, and growing competition melted away its charm. A nostalgic revival in the 2000s gave fans hope, but by 2019, the final Farrell's in Brea, California, closed its doors, bringing a bittersweet end to one of America's most joyful dining experiences. These beloved restaurants may be gone, but their flavors, laughter, and late-night memories still linger. Did we leave out one of your favorites? Tell us in the comments. If you love this trip back in time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. More nostalgic bites are coming your way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.